Welcome to the Standard H podcast, a casual conversation about the lives of entrepreneurs and those growing companies. I can't thank you enough for listening, as these episodes have been a wonderful supplement to the line of apparel that I'm thrilled to share is steadily growing. If you like what you hear, please visit standard-h.com and sign up for our email list. The website not only hosts every episode of this show, but also allows you to explore the entire product assortment and our latest travel recommendations. As an email subscriber, you will be the first to receive product release information as well as receive offers no one else is privy to. Just visit standard-h.com for more information. Seeing Standard H worn by a growing number of watch enthusiasts has been incredibly cool to witness, so chances are good if you're listening to this, you're probably an enthusiast already. However, if not, it makes no difference, as Passion Fine Jewelry welcomes everyone into their shop in Solana Beach, California. If you're already in deep, you'll know some of the brands that Tim Jackson and his team carry, which are some of the most highly sought-after independent watch manufacturers sold today. Names like Roger Smith, Grunfeld, Kudoke, Habring, Sarpaneva, and many more. If you can't make it to California, visit passionfinejewelry.com for their entire offering online. This episode is also brought to you by Cantonment. Cantonment's flagship product, the kerchief, is a perfect medium between a handkerchief and a bandana. Featuring iconic designs such as the Fender Stratocaster and the dashboard of a Volkswagen GTI, these utilitarian cloths are an item that should be a mainstay in your everyday carry. Tuck one in a back pocket or use one as a neckerchief. Visit them at cantonment.co, that's cantonment.co, and use the code STANDARDH in all caps, no spaces, for 20% off everything in their online shop. Now let's get to the show. As somewhat of a turn of events, I didn't take a break between Season 6 and Season 7. I wanted to keep things moving, so today actually marks the launch of Season 7 of the Standard H podcast, and it's a special one. Golf. It exists in many ways for many reasons for a ton of people. It's social and it's escapism. It's a game and it's difficult. It's gratifying and it's penalizing. And it's different for nearly everyone that takes up the activity. It can be an obsession for many and quite literally an addiction for some. But I don't think anyone gives golf more thought than Erik Anders Lang. As founder of Random Golf Club and the host of Adventures in Golf, Erik is one of the most dynamic personalities in the game. I've been a longtime fan and have admired what he's built as a company and a brand, which is why it's such a thrill to have him on the show. I enjoy his enthusiasm, his curious nature, and his overall vibe. We kick things off with some car talk. Erik happens to own one of my favorite 911s, a 993. He eloquently explains how his Porsche enthusiasm began, and it wasn't a poster or a movie. In fact, it might just be the most organic appreciation I've ever heard, which doesn't surprise me. If you follow Erik, you may be like me, where you feel like this dude's just got it. As a creator, his content is absolutely art. In this episode, Erik shares one major thing he wishes he'd done differently, as well as gives us a glimpse into his time working with David LaChapelle, one of my favorite creators of all time. Erik explains why growing the game of golf isn't what he's set out to do, and why collaboration is important. Hand in hand, I ask Erik about the genesis and the contribution of his executive coaches. I can't thank Erik enough for his time, and I truly admire his and his team's work. They're hands down making the best golf content available. I really hope we can do a part 2, since I had so much more to talk about, but for now I hope you guys enjoy my conversation with Erik Anders Lang. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard H podcast. You moved to LA in a Volvo that I want to talk about, because you said you had bought and sold it for the same amount of money, which is incredible. What more can you tell us about that car?
Yeah, I bought it for, I think I bought it for $1,200, and I sold it. I think I might have even made money on it. I think I sold it for $1,300, and it was, it served a lot of purposes, like golf cart, hotel room. I drove all over the country with it, and it was a beautiful, beautiful vehicle.
Well, you now have, if I'm not mistaken, a 993, 911. Is that right or no?
Yeah. Yeah, that is it's also stick shift, very similar car. It's but it's I think neither car has cup holders actually. So they do have some similarities and they're both stick shift.
So what got you into the 993? That's my favorite 911 of all time.
It's a beautiful car. I did this job for Chase Bank, and we were like it was like around the Harding Park PGA Championship, and Chase Sapphire, they're into travel and food, so the idea was I'll drive to San Francisco and eat food along the way and like tell a story about that experience, which is something I would do normally. And they were like, since it's a beautiful drive, we'd love to film you in the car, and we'd like you to be in like they sent me a picture of like a big Mercedes convertible, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And they were like, okay, well, it just has to be a convertible, and I was like, okay. So I went on. Have you heard of Turo?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's like if you're listening and you don't know what it is, it's like Airbnb for cars, and it's so cool. It's like really fun. Like you could rent a 5 Series BMW for $50 a day, which is cheaper than Hertz or whatever.
Right.
And it's like the individual just meets you at the airport or whatever. So I found this 911. It was a 2014 convertible 911, and it was under someone else's budget, so we rented it. And honestly, I didn't like it at first because it was like really bumpy, and like I didn't really like the convertible. I thought people who drove around in convertibles were idiots, and look at them, they look like idiots, and and then I was used to. I had a Model 3, a Tesla, and so I was used to like having autopilot and like air conditioning and map ability and like just a smart car, And like about halfway through the trip from Los Angeles to San Francisco, I'm in this 911 and I hit like my first turn, and I was like, oh.
I got it.
This thing, that's why this car is made. It's for turns. It's for driving. It's not a car. It's not a vehicle. It's a driving tool. And it became like all of a sudden I started to experience it kind of like golf. Like when you first learn to shape your shots, or like photography, when you learn about putting a ND on the lens, or even the craft of audio. Like you want a nice microphone. How do you use your voice? And the car became this like creative thing. And so 3 weeks later, I bought a Porsche. Like I fell in love with the car. And the only reason I bought a car 3 weeks later is because my neighbor literally was walking his dog by my house, and he was like, hey, I'm selling my 997. Okay. And so I bought that car just like because I was like, this is too good to be true. And and I just I think Porsche is a great brand. I think what's interesting about Porsche is that they it's a lot of car for not a lot of money, actually. I mean, sure, it's a luxury car, it's expensive, but
right.
They really stay true to what they're about, which is this like total experience of being behind the wheel. And there's not a lot of concessions made. Like BMW, it's like, you got there's 4 doors, there's a trunk. It's like you're kind of committing. You're like, you know what I mean? Like you're getting less,
right? Because
you're interested in something else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, man, I'm super jealous. I don't own one myself, but I drive a GTI as my daily, and that's
I love that car.
Such a bang for your buck type of situation.
Yeah.
But I agree, though. Porsche, I think, though expensive, still punches way above its weight, as far as value.
Oh, well, I mean, expensive like for the new ones, but I mean, you can get into like a 15-year-old Porsche for, under, $30,000, $25,000. So it's like, sure, like a Tacoma on some level is more expensive than some Porsches,
Yeah, totally.
And the maintenance isn't, people are like, oh, the maintenance. It's like, no, not really. Like they last forever. Like they've been around for a long time, and you just need to find a mechanic that's not trying to like, take advantage.
Yeah. I think the funny thing about Porsche is like a lot of people try to like keep the miles low and stuff, but they actually perform better when you drive them more. Like they want to be driven.
Oh yeah, no, I'll frequently like get back from a trip, and the whole mindset is wring its neck. You know what I mean? This car
Yeah.
needs to redline because it's burning off a lot of the carbon and stuff inside the cylinders, and it needs that pressure and the heat on the seals and all this stuff. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's a machine. Like just like a golf club only works when you really like when you're actually swinging it.
Yeah. What does rebellion mean to you?
I mean, rebellion is like, I don't actually think rebellion is very interesting, because like, what like I think, yeah, I'm not like the way I picture that is like I'm gonna go stand somewhere with a sign. And for me, I would say like I'm much more of like a peaceful kind of like I would rather like kind of just behave differently or go elsewhere
Yeah.
with my time. But I wouldn't say I'm like too much of like an activist. I'm assuming I don't know what context you're speaking about, but like rebellion for me is kind of like I guess when you make it the word rebel, it starts to sound different to me because then it's an individual activity,
Yeah.
and you could just be experiencing the world in a different way and staying true to what you find interesting and valuable. But rebellion, I guess, had a different connotation to me, as though it's a group of people doing something. But I
Right.
think I think you can only really do yourself.
Yeah. I just kind of, I guess in this context, associate it more just going against the grain, maybe. Which it's funny. I've heard a lot of interviews with you, and I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and have followed the channel, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, even just, I believe I heard a story of you knocking your tooth out or knocking or loose or
Yeah,
something, head banging in classical music class or something like that.
yeah, yeah. But see, that
So,
wasn't rebellion. That was just play.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure. But I guess I bring it up because of like I just associated that with sort of being a class clown and kind of,
Yeah.
and maybe that's boredom, right? Like I was kind of the same when I was a kid. Like I talked
Okay.
all through elementary school, constantly got in trouble, but I had straight A's because I always finished my work and then I disrupted everybody else. Like,
Right. Right.
so it was just kind of weird in that sense, and so I was just kind of curious as to like like what your thoughts are and like the idea of commitment, right? Because if you're a class clown, you got to commit to the bit, so to speak. You know what I mean? And like,
Interesting.
and you and I are both, I think, very self-proclaimed sensitive guys. So
Yeah.
just having, it's just that dichotomy of being sensitive but yet overtly confident in our abilities to maybe commit to the bit.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's interesting to hear you describing it because for me, it's like it wasn't really much of that for me. It was for
Mm,
me, it was more like just stupidity,
okay.
um, lack of regard for consequence. Like, didn't even consider it. Like, it would be like it was just like if I was my own parent, I would probably the most common phrase I would have said to myself if I was parenting myself would have been, "Are you even thinking?"
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like you're not. There's no consequences to what you're thinking, and ultimately, over time, I developed the ability to, consider the consequences of an action. But, at that time, it was just being young. Like it was just like full short-term hedonist,
Hmm.
full like just yeah. I guess the commitment to the bit um, is what you could describe it as. But internally, I mean, it wasn't a bit. It was just,
The right thing to do.
yeah, it was like, I'm not stopping until this thing is broken. And
Right.
I'm talking about my leg or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't understand,
Yeah.
really, even.
You're from New Jersey. I'm also
Yeah.
from the East Coast originally. What do you remember most about your childhood?
I think, like mentally, we're designed to remember the experiences that are painful.
Mm.
That's just humanness, right? Like you want to not put your hand on a hot flame, so let's make sure we don't forget that experience. And I think that also, happens when it comes to like emotional things or
Yeah.
social things. So like I got in trouble every year. I think what was the question? What was the most memorable thing or
Yeah, like what do you remember most about your childhood? Like, is it an event or just like a vibe or?
I remember being the youngest of three and having an older brother and sister beyond like 7 or 8 years. Like my sister was like 8.5, my brother was 9.5 years older than me.
Got
So I
it.
remember being part of like a family where they were much older than me, and then all of a sudden being an only child. And at the same time, I remember the dynamic of our family changed because my dad went from doing research full time as a scientist, as a physicist, to doing management, which resulted in more hours, more stress, and more money.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know any of this, but here I am, third grade, 9 years old. I didn't know what was happening, but I did know that all of a sudden we weren't cooking at home anymore. I knew
Hmm.
that instead of driving to Virginia, we flew to the Cayman Islands. And so it was an interesting experience to watch, my dad, who in a lot of ways is a lot like me, sort of pulling a thread of curiosity in the world. And for him, it was atomic particles, nuclear physics, and, dry ice, right? Like just like the magic of the world for him represented on a molecular level.
Right.
For me, it was more social and spiritual and kind of like, coincidental. And I'm more speaking to my experience now, which is that now my life feels very work oriented and management oriented, and so therefore it's more stressful, a little less fun, and a little bit more. There's more money involved, and when I say that, I mean the phrase "more money, more problems" is true, and so
Yeah.
I just am thinking about that now because you're asking me a question about my past. I can only comment on it from right now, so I imagine next week I would have a different answer. But
Right.
the interesting experience is reflecting on how the family dynamic changed very rapidly around my father's job selection and on his desire to provide and create long-term, stability for the family. And I think that had an impact on me, whether I even know what that is right now or not. Um, but I'm relating to it now in a different way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. My dad had a couple different jobs, but I never really felt any different. I guess maybe his different jobs paid him roughly the same, so life wasn't really that different, but that's interesting. What was your first job?
I was telling the story yesterday. I I so my neighbor on my street was the O'Donnell family, and they had a couple sons, and the oldest son was Neil O'Donnell, who ended up going on. He was a great pitcher at our high school, and he ended up going on to pitch for the quarterback. He was a great quarterback in high school for the football team, and he ended up going to QB for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was in the Super Bowl. He lost, but
Yeah.
he was in the fucking Super Bowl. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember throwing the ball with him as a kid, and he had like a fucking gun. And his youngest brother Jack was, older than actually he was older than Neil, but he had Down syndrome. And Jack and I would hang out on the street, and you know, later, a few years later, I ended up getting my first job at the supermarket where I bagged groceries. And Jack also worked there, and he returned the shopping carts.
Sure.
And everyone knew Jack, and everyone would wave at him. And I just think he must have had the best job ever, because it was physical. He's outside, social. Everyone really cared about him in our town.
Yeah.
And, I was a part of that for about a year as a 16-year-old, my first real job with a paycheck. And yeah, I bagged groceries, and I loved it. I loved bagging groceries. I don't know why. It was before plastic bags. Um, now plastic bags have just took all the art out of it, and you got two bags, you flick it before the handles even. There were no handles on the bags.
Right,
You
right.
flicked it open, 2 in 1, boom, you're good. Here you go, Mrs. Finch. And she's on her way,
Oh, that's
Take them
funny.
out to the car for her, meet Jack, hang out.
What was the first CD you ever paid for with your own money?
So the first CD I ever paid for with my own money was Bonnie Raitt. And I don't remember the name. I think it was called Keeping Time, or I don't remember, but it was the one with Let's Give Them Something to Talk About.
Yeah.
What a great album, man.
Man, that's crazy. I feel like that was that in Bull Durham or like some baseball movie had that song in it, or maybe it's Tin
Might have.
Cup. Like I don't, I've,
Oh, might have.
I'm just picturing Kevin Costner for some reason.
Now the
But
second album I bought was Easy E. I can't remember the name of the album, but it was like one of his main albums. Easy Does It was what it was called. Yeah,
incredible.
Erik Wright. Yeah, and so it's a bit. Yeah, I've always had eclectic music taste, but yeah,
Right,
Bonnie Raitt straight to Easy E.
right. What are you into now?
Now, I mean, I like all sorts of music now. I've been really digging. So what I do now is I have like a liked playlist on Spotify where it's just the songs I've liked, and I'll try every week, like whenever I'm in a restaurant or in someone's car or wherever, and I hear something I like, I Shazam it and put it straight in the playlist. So,
Yeah.
like my most recent like songs on my playlist are like this guy Bakar.
Okay.
I've been liking him. Tommy Richmond and Bickle. And it's just like whatever. But the kind of music is, it's kind of like, it's kind. I guess people call it anti-pop or it's like kind of more like, I don't even know genres anymore. There's so many genres, I don't even know. It's got to have a feeling to it. That's all.
Right. No, I like that.
And usually I'm an upbeat kind of guy, so it's usually something upbeat.
Right. You dropped out of high school, I know, which fascinates me because, again, going back to like commitment, right? Like, you have to commit when you do that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I agree though, because what does commitment mean? How do you define commitment?
Well, you're making a decision and you have to live with it.
Yeah, but that's just what happens. That's not a choice every day. You don't choose to. Like, I would say commitment is more like staying in school. Like dropping out was almost the opposite of commitment. Like I was uncommitted, so therefore I completely let go of the choice, and to say that I don't regret it would be
Yeah.
untrue.
So you do regret it.
Sure, I wish I went to college.
Why? Why? Like a lot of people would say college is useless.
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I think college is useless if you're looking for job skills. But I think socially, I think, it's your first chance to get out in the world. I think it's that toe dip into adult life that you get, and you develop lifelong friends as a new person, right? In high school, it's like you're just a product of who you're around. In college, it's big enough that you can go out and meet new people. I mean, I ended up doing that on my own, but I went to breakfast this morning. I live in Austin now. I'm in Austin, and it's been 2 years. And I was at this diner right in UT area, like North Austin, and I was looking around. I was like, man, I wish I went to UT. Like this place would be really. If I could do everything over again, I would go to UT. That's the only thing I would do differently.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
I know so your brother got you into photography, which I guess got you into video later, just the experimentation with cameras, I guess, or you just want to change the medium?
Well, so my brother had a dark room. I wouldn't know if he got me into photography, but I was getting into it, and I used some of his old,
Okay.
items like the dark room and the enlarger and the things like that. And yeah, basically I like developed this love. I don't understand why. I think the camera was kind of like a compass or a Ouija board, and it was a reason to go out into the world. It created an opportunity for adventure because you're searching. It's something I'm looking for. I don't know what, right? And then, and then eventually, I got a digital camera. Then the digital cameras eventually had the ability to record video. And then all of a sudden, someone said, "I need a video to be recorded, and I'll pay for it." And I said, "Well, then I will subsequently learn how to do that on this job." And yeah, that was the story, really.
Right. And I know you worked with David LaChapelle. Is there anything that maybe you learned from him that you still use today?
Oh, sure. I mean, so many things, right? Like David was a true artist, right? He functioned very well in the world of commerce. His ability to satisfy a commercial endeavor for a brand, whether it's Lavazza or Playboy or Ford, was like kind of impressive. I think he learned a lesson early on that I wasn't witness to. Well, I was actually witness to one of them, but basically, he did this job for Rolling Stone, and he sent the photos in, and they were like, "What the fuck is this?" And he was like, I did what you asked. And they said, no, we want you to do you. Like you didn't, you stopped being you. And like for me, that's interesting because I mean, look, Random Golf Club is, it's not, it's an art actually, right? It needs to become a business to some level where like, we can create a functional and beneficial offering to people. And, that's, like its own creative enterprise for me right now. But it's ultimately a very creative idea, which is how do we like create a membership that I guess the word you were using was rebellion. Like how do we rebel against the typical paradigm of golf club? And that's what we're seeking to understand. But then later I saw David like basically doing this photo shoot that wasn't working. And they were bringing in the model, they were changing the backdrop, they were changing the lighting, blah, blah, blah. And then like the stylist was changing their clothes. And then like, it'd been like 10 hours on this one photo in the studio, which is way longer than normal. Usually it's like, an hour or 2 or 3, but maybe it wasn't 10 hours, but it was a long time and it was getting weird, right? Like the music was turned down and then finally like the client was there and finally David just got up and he took the 2 models and he said, come with me. And they went back to the dressing room and like 30 minutes later, they came out in different outfits and it was done. Like it was perfect. It looked good. And so on some level, you realize like, and this is a lesson for me is like, I mean, we've developed a team of so many talented people here. The hardest part is communicating what the image and the vision is. And like, I bet going back, like, I mean, Patty Klein was, Patty, I can't remember her last name, but she was like the most famous stylist at the time. She did Sex and the City. But like, like the idea that like there was just some things that like he could see that no one else could is kind of interesting, and I like sometimes I think about that and I get kind of stressed out because it's like, oh wow, like, I don't, in this particular example for me in my life now, like I want to know as little as possible. And I want to, I just want to be available here to like make sure that we're vocalizing the purpose of what we're doing when it comes to Random Golf Club. And, but David was definitely a bit of a one-man band, kind of not a control freak, but certainly like extraordinarily creative, and a wonderfully kind person. But also it was very intense working there. And I would like to have a different experience now as an adult.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because like the earlier days, I guess it's almost pre-Random Golf Club, right? You were just making videos and documentaries, and then it just kind of grew into Random Golf Club. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were like the early, like what was the mission statement, for, if there was one, when you first started making videos? Like what drew you or like what inspired you to do it?
Well, I mean, I was into videos before golf, so there was no mission statement then. It was just, late 20s exploring the world, but now hitting a red button as opposed to a shutter, now taking 24 pictures every second.
Right.
There was no, the mission statement was, do real work as little as possible, spend as much time like in a state of pleasure and joy, and maintain like creative control.
Do you like,
So it was like sleeping in the car was the solution. You know what I mean? Like traveling around, taking pictures and meeting people and talking and just exploring.
right.
That was the result of that criteria.
Why is growing the game important to you now?
I don't know that I subscribe to the grow the game mentality. I think grow the game is sort of a phrase that was first uttered by like a massive corporation, which I don't have a problem with the idea of massive corporations, but I don't know that grow the game actually supports what Random Golf Club is interested in doing, which is I'm more interested in supporting the new people that come to the game. So I'm more interested. For me, grow the game, it's too vague. What the fuck does it mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I need something more specific. So for me, I'm more interested in something like let's create the friendliest golf club on earth, or let's become the first and last place that people go when they get into golf.
Right.
So, growing the game, it could be haphazard, right? It could mean things that I don't necessarily believe in. I like love Top Golf. I think it's cool, but does that grow the game? I don't know, right? Like
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Right.
Does like, you know, I just don't know what grow the game even means. Like,
Mm.
but I do know that like golf, maybe more than any other sport, has the ability to actually create an opportunity for both self knowledge and an authentic community more than any other sport, whether it's a diverse community of people, whether it's age, race, gender, everything,
Hmm.
income, location, right? Or whether it's the deeper understanding of how powerless I am over every goddamn thing in this universe, whether it's my own job, my physical health, or the wherever the fuck this golf ball ends up, I have no control. And so golf teaches you that, and it also allows you to meet people who are learning the same thing at the same time.
Right. Yeah. No, that's well said, I think. Can you tell us a little bit about Be the Ball?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Be the Ball is really where it all started when it comes to like golf content for me. I basically got into golf. I was already into video, and then I started to see that there was this group of people that were using meditation to, improve their own golf games. And I'm not talking about just random people at the municipal course in LA. I'm talking about like Jason Day and Justin Rose and a few others. At the time, Jason Day was going to become world number one based on his meditation routine ultimately. And so I basically saw this opportunity to make a documentary about whether or not golf is a spiritual game measured by a scientific study that would basically test whether or not people would improve at golf after developing a meditation routine. So if you got better at golf by meditating, you could then create a hypothesis that says golf is a spiritual game. So we did that, and it's coming out this year, but I don't know when. But I'm excited. But that's the beginning of it all.
What's been the hardest part about creating the film?
Persistence, man. Just like keep going. You know what I mean? Like it's a fucking constant drip, and you got to stay focused on it. It's a lot. I luckily there's a lot of people who have helped throughout the whole process, whether it's the first producer that I worked with, or the editors, camera operators, the people helping me do the experiment at USC, or the kind of post production house that's finishing it. Like, yeah, I mean it's just like, it's like persistence, man.
Are you in front of the camera for this, or are you more behind it?
I didn't want to be in front of the camera ever, but yes, for the purposes of narrative, yes, I am. And that's ultimately what led to me doing Adventures in Golf, is that these people at the PGA Tour saw me like hosting this documentary trailer, and they were like, yo,
You're good at it.
you could host something. And I'm like, you got the wrong guy, but if you're paying, I'll work for anybody.
That's funny. Well, as somebody now in front of the camera who's spent so much time behind it, like how do you manage sort of the creative process?
I mean, for me, my favorite part about the creative process is the collaboration that's involved, and also the unknowns, right? So, like when you do the Magic 8 Ball and you get the option that says, ask again later,
Right.
or whatever. That's the universe when you're traveling. Kurt Vonnegut has one of my favorite quotes ever, which says, peculiar travel suggestions are dancing lessons from God. And so when we combine, I guess my point of view when it regards those things, a camera as a form of a creative device of editing out the world to show you what I want you to see, and then the unknowns of what happens in an event. The definition of adventure is to not know what's going to happen, and it should include something dangerous. So when you combine those three things, you end up with something creative when it comes to a film that I really love. And so for me, it's a collaboration with the universe, with people that you haven't met, with the location, with yourself. You're kind of like, as a producer slash director slash talent, it's like also you're oh, do we stay here? Do we go? So many decisions that come up. And then obviously, most importantly, it's whoever's with you on that trip,
Right.
whether they're a producer or a filmmaker or an sound operator or whatever. I mean, you're constantly in this state of creation, which is just like, for me, that's like my favorite place ever is just, you know, it's like the pitcher's mound for like, a person who's, about just so comfortable up there.
Right. Right. Yeah, totally. Well, we sort of glazed over it, I guess. So, can you describe what Random Golf Club is for
Sure.
those
Yeah.
listening that may not know what it is?
Yeah, Random Golf Club is a global community of local golfers. We sort of create content that people find themselves attracted to based on usually it's an inspirational message about why we're here and why we play the game, and then that ends up filtering into our world of e-commerce where we make products that really aim to change the way golf looks, right? Golf looks very stale and it's very boring. But the ability for us to be able to make things that are pretty attainable as far as cost and pretty special as far as design. And then the third part of Random Golf Club is our community aspect, where we create events and meetups wherever we go. So, like the last one we did, we were in London. We had 150 people come out. We played golf on the same hole. It was a riot. Rick Shields was there. We did a podcast. We had a challenge, and then we're also developing currently a way to join a membership in Random Golf Club where people will be able to connect locally. So when I say a global community of local golfers, I mean just that. Around the world, there are 100 or more ambassadors that represent Random Golf Club in their area where they can, hold events. I was just in Vegas last week. 40 people came out to this Random Golf Club Las Vegas meetup at 5 Iron, this simulator location, and basically all these people are able to connect there, and I went as a surprise. I didn't tell anybody, and I showed up, and obviously a few people were like, "Hey, Eric, you're the guy from the videos. You invented Random Golf Club," but there was a lot of other people that were there, and "Hey, was this your first time?"
Oh, cool.
And it was really special for me because I never
Yeah.
made this thing to be about me. It was always supposed to be about you and about us and about the game and about never I wasn't never ever did I want to be the face or the voice of anything.
Right.
And so it's kind of I think about the Matrix a lot, where it's I'm not the one. But then somehow the fucking universe has just kept pushing me in this direction, and now it's okay. But the goal now is to create a situation where, like you were talking about, with Random Golf Club, where the videos can be hosted by other interesting people who have, other adventures to go on that they've never experienced, who are better at golf or have different perspectives or came from a different place or want to go to a different place, and then start creating, a deeper line of equipment and accessories and apparel for people to be able to get into golf in an affordable way and represent a game that they're fucking passionate about, that these massive corporations just make into this corporate suck. And then also be able to find their community in the real world
Yeah.
by using the tools that Random Golf Club provides. That's what Random Golf Club is, and that's a long elevator pitch. So
No, that's cool. That's what this medium's about.
yeah.
No, thanks for describing it for everybody. But I know you've mentioned that you guys use executive coaches, and
Yeah.
I'm personally this is the first company I've ever started, Standard H, and like you, I never wanted it to be about me, which is why it's not called Wesley Smith. But I wanted to kind of understand better how you went about finding these executive coaches and sort of kind of what they mean and do for you.
Yeah. So most things in my life, man, Random Golf Club isn't just a name. It's it's a way of living, dude. It's just everything just kind of appears, but you have to ask for it or know that you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically I matched with this girl on a dating app 4 years ago.
Okay.
And it took us 2 years to actually ever meet because I was traveling, she was traveling, I got a girlfriend, she got a boyfriend. All of a sudden it's COVID and we finally meet. And this is 2 years ago. And we're not a match, right? Clear clear immediately, right? Like I meet her, we meet, just, oh, okay, we're not going to like date, but we go have dinner, and she's telling me about this life coach that's changed her life. And I was going through, I guess, everybody's going through COVID. I was also going through a breakup, and work was uncertain, and I was starting to have some questions about work. So I said, I'd love to talk to your life coach. It's just like, never had thought about a life coach. I had been in therapy in my life. I love the idea of psychotherapy and psychology and stuff. So I had to go meet this life coach, Nora, and immediately, just like this switched on experience.
Really?
So we're working together for a while, and then after a month or 3, I'm like, I need someone to help me. I'm having a problem in my business. And ultimately it was a problem of communicating what I really wanted deep down inside, even in the face of potentially having someone walk away from that, right? It would be like going into a relationship with a person that you're dating, and you would say, I want to have 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm inflexible on that. And they would say, well, I don't want any kids. And you say, okay, well, then we might as well not date anymore.
Right.
And I kind of was having that in business, where I was realizing that there was things that I felt like in my own relationship to business with, at that point, someone that was working with me as my partner at the time. I was like, we saw the business a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
So the executive coach came out of a need, right? Like I just had a specific need. And that's really the whole way my life has worked and Elon Musk talks about this. Like, don't give someone a hammer and just say, here's what a hammer is. Give them a hammer and then give them a nail. Be like,
Right.
And then tell them they got to go solve this problem. And so for me, it's always been about a problem to solve. And so the problem at that time was ultimately like, I need advice. I need kind of a criteria for, like how I'm going to run my business, but it's going to be like compassionately, patiently, with gratitude, all of these things, curiously, right? So we developed a lot of these ways of thinking, and ultimately over time, like the initial reason for wanting to meet with these executive coaches came to a head, right? And my business partner and I ended up separating and splitting ways because of the same things that was happening when I originally wanted to talk to them. It just took me 2 years. It was a long pimple to pop, but like, that was like a really valuable like experience that just without them, who knows what would have happened. And without some of the problems, like we need to really remember too, like problems are good and setbacks are crucial, because without that setback, number one, you probably wouldn't have learned what you needed to learn. And 2, you could be worse off later. So it goes back to that Jocko video where he's like, setback, good. Right? There's no such thing as good or bad news. On a long enough timeline, any bad news could become good news, and any good news could become bad news. So let's not try and judge the news, and let's just accept it and move forward with action. So it's a weird relationship with these executive coaches, but ultimately we're on the same tone and wavelength of just like, curiously walking through the universe of business. It's been really interesting.
What was like an example of something that you wanted to do that maybe your business partner didn't want?
Yeah, I mean, like, oh man.
Or is it the list is too long?
No. No. I'm trying to find a good egg here. I mean, a good example. I mean, like, I'm gonna just answer more generally. But
Sure.
I think, generally speaking,
Or is it more of like a culture thing, not really a to-do list thing?
it's that, yeah, it's a culture thing, right? It's like, how do we present in the world of business to business? We do a lot of business to business, right? We work with a lot of other companies as a media partner and as a collaboration partner in products, and so there's partly that. It was more like just like what we wanted from the business,
I see.
right? And therefore what we were willing to give to the business.
Right.
And ironically, the more you want from the business in some cases, the less you want to give to the business. It's sort of
Totally.
similar to like, I did a podcast recently where we were talking about the Live Tour and to some extent corporate greed.
Sure.
And greed, I think, is really one of the essential problems of today's world, where we just want to keep taking. And for me, Random Golf Club was never ever about taking. It was always about giving and creating. Creating. What the fuck is creating, right? Like if you're really creating something, like it serves the world. People consume it like they do food.
Yeah.
And that's nourishing. So if we're a real creator, we have to make sure that like it's got the, nourishment that is required.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on some level we didn't really see that the same way, right? And I have very high bar for what is nourishing creation, and for the community, for the products, or for the media, right? Those are the three business lines that we have at Random Golf Club. So how do we like make each one the most, nourishing creation?
Yeah.
And I think, we just didn't like share that same mindset. And I think it was kind of like, there was an aspect of like, good business is important, and Andy Warhol says that's the best art. But at the same time, it has to have meaning and value,
Yeah.
Spiritually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I guess, I don't know, what I took from that is sort of the just underlying theme of good quality.
Yeah.
Which I think
Quality.
which I think you guys do well. Like I own your products. They're all made extremely well. All the video, the cinematography especially, like it's all great. Like I think you guys are producing, and this isn't me kissing your ass, it's me just calling it what it is objectively, and it's good filmmaking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we work hard on that, right? That's part of our craft. That's one of the things that we create.
Yeah. It's unbelievably entertaining. It's spiritual on a sense, and you feel something,
Yeah.
which is kind of the goal, I think, for on if I could put words in your mouth, right? Like I feel something anyway. One thing
That is the goal.
one
The goal is to either educate, entertain, or inspire. That's
Right.
one of the three, or two if good, three if great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome, man. So again, thank you for your time, because it means a lot to have you on the show, and you serve as an inspiration to me and my little brand that I'm a one-man band in so far, and growing. So it's awesome.
I love that, man. Well, however I can be of service to you, I would, love the chance. I see a lot of books on your shelf that I either own or have known about.
Well, if you want to read them, I'll send them to you. No, it's all good. And thank you for saying that. Yeah, would absolutely love a part two, or to connect some way if you're ever up in LA. I live in San Diego, so I'm down here. So,
Cool.
I know you're pressed for time. Your channel has gotten me into more. So I'm a golfer, obviously, and you have kind of pushed me more into the architecture interest as well, of courses and such. And so my parents live in Pinehurst. I haven't played the Cradle yet. You played it with Gil Hanse, like himself.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, like, what are your markers for a good golf course?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just like, for me, like, I don't really like
Or does it matter?
good.
Is it
Yeah,
just
it
the
doesn't matter. I mean,
experience?
good golf course is like number 8 on the list for me. Like number 1 is who you're with,
Yeah.
right? Number 2 is how do you feel? Like, have you taken care of the things in your life to go enjoy this activity?
That's cool.
Right? Like, can you experience this? Right? Like, and for me, a lot of times that means I'm playing 9 holes. Right? Like, sometimes I can't really go play 18.
Right.
Number 3 is like, what time of day is it? Right? Like, it should be either early morning or late evening. That's just mathematical, right? Number 4, like, is there a dog with you? Like, are you know what I mean? Like, is there music? Like, are you wearing a collar? Hopefully not, right? Like, are you taking the game for what it is, and are you giving to the experience? Are you curious? Are you asking? Are you with a group of people that's also curious? Are you engaged in conversation about ideas? Right? Like your time is a record, and you are recording a moment that can't ever be changed. So why ever would you use a moment unintentionally? So go out and make golf the most beautiful song you can, because you don't get a chance to mulligan the round. And even if you drop another ball, the idea of a mulligan is a fantasy.
Right.
you're hitting a second ball.
Right.
So just play that first ball and play that day like as it lies. And that's for me that game of golf. Like it's not really about the greens.
Right.
If someone's talking about the speed of the greens, it's kind of like, wait, I'm sorry, did I get on the wrong bus? Am I going to the wrong place?
Right.
I played Oakmont the other day in Pittsburgh. I was with a guy who was like talking about the green speeds, and I was like, I get it. That's normal. I get it. We can talk about the green speeds. That's very like one-dimensional mentality.
It's like talking about the weather.
That's exactly what it is. You nailed it, Wesley. That's exactly what it is.
Do you know what I mean? It's like what you hit the putt either harder or softer. Like let's keep it moving. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Interesting.
Well, I look forward to playing golf with you sometime. I'm sure I'll be in Southern California soon. Where do you live down? Where do you play mostly?
I try to play Torrey as much as I can. It's hard to get on, obviously. But yeah, I'm kind of the nation's member. I'll play wherever.
Love that.
Yeah,
I've wanted to play San Clemente, the little 9-hole course there.
I haven't played that yet. I've been wanting to.
Yeah, I want to go down there, and I love Brendan Thomas, the publisher of Golfers Journal, and John Ashworth and Matt Chanel. You guys got a great golf crew down there. I'd love to come back.
There's a lot of things that we could talk offline about that we have commonalities on, including Chris Durr. Shout out Chris, because I met him on an airplane. I literally
no way.
I heard his voice boarding the plane. I turned around. I was like, "You're from Random Golf Club's channel." I swear to God.
Wait. You got to open with that, dude. That's too good.
Dude, I swear. So, like, you and I, we need to, like, have lunch or go play that 9-hole course. Like, we could.
Yeah.
And I hate that we're pressed for time because I have 3 hours of questions that I had for you. And I
enjoyed it.
But I do kind of want to do some rapid fire shit because, like,
sure.
I know you've had a hole in one, but I don't think I've ever heard. What course was it on?
Yeah, so it was at Rustic Canyon on the 6th hole.
Nice.
Yeah, 200-yard par 3, obviously. Yeah, it was like my second year of playing golf. And so Scratch actually asked me to lie when I did the hole-in-one episode in Adventures in Golf. And I supremely regret it because I didn't understand how authenticity works on the internet, and I just didn't. This was before Adventures in Golf was even a thing, and they were like, "Well, it's more interesting if you haven't had a hole in one," and I was like, "But I have," and they're like, "Well, but like it's more interesting if you haven't from the narrative of this episode's perspective," and I was like, "But I have," and they were like, "Well," and I was just like, "What the fuck is going on?" And like, to be honest with you, after season 2, I almost quit doing Adventures in Golf. I'm so glad I didn't, and I was able to actually navigate the difficulties of what was basically a partnership between two businesses, one being Erik Anders Lang, soon to become Random Golf Club, and PGA Tour doing business as Scratch TV. Anyway, long answer, but I had a hole in one.
Oh man, yeah.
And I had to lie about it.
When playing championship courses with the stands there, does it help you or hurt you? Because like, can it act as like like visually? I'm saying
it's a backdrop.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a backstop. It's like a backboard.
Yeah.
You can hit off of it, and it's easier to play. I mean, it doesn't really distract if you're, it's just exciting to see. It's all dressed up. It's kind of like it's got its kilt before the wedding,
Yeah. You're an F1 fan, which I cannot leave this out, as am I, obviously. What do you make of the season so far?
I mean, not as interesting as last season. That's for dang sure. I haven't been watching recently. I've been kind of traveling. I've watched a half hour of television in the last 2 months, which is sort of good and bad.
That's kind of my dream, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, I watched The Bear, that cooking show.
Do you like it?
I mean, it was very stressful. Oh, I also watched the first episode of We Crashed. That was also stressful. It's like these two like really intense like work stories, and I'm just like, I can't. I have enough on my own. But yeah, I mean, I think I honestly haven't been as tuned in as I'd like to have been this season.
Do you have a team or a driver that you follow?
I mean, I was always really into Lewis Hamilton. Like, I love how he's just inspiring, and like he's trying to do like what is essentially the impossible,
right?
And maybe next year it'll happen. I really like Lando Norris too. Not only is he a golfer, obviously, but he's just got good energy, and he's a really good driver, and it's cool to see the dichotomy of young and old and the styles.
Right.
He's very polite too.
You rock a Tudor Black Bay GMT, which is a solid choice. What drew you to the watch?
Well, I mean, like when I started to learn about the idea of what a GMT was, and that its purpose originally was to support pilots who were, traversing time zones.
Yeah.
I found that really personally interesting, and the idea of a watch being really the in my opinion the only appropriate male jewelry that we can acquire to celebrate our own achievements. I bought it when I did my first job for the USGA, which was making a series of films and hosting a symposium in Japan, and like it was this big deal, and I used the money that they paid me to buy this watch. Unfortunately, I don't wear the watch that much anymore because I bought an Apple Watch, and that kind of has a tremendous amount of functionality. I did have a GMT hand
On the dial?
on my
Yeah.
I use it's kind of cheeky, but yeah, really that watch to me says adventure. It reminds me like that the world is only 24 time zones.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. Well, you have a hard out in like 2 minutes, so I'm going to borrow one of your questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Sure. What's your what interior color should a car be?
Ooh. I mean, I don't think it's one, because I think it also depends on the exterior of the color of the car. But I mean, the easy way out is to say black, but I'm going to say charcoal gray because that's even more versatile.
Interesting.
Something that hides dirt. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think of like usability. I actually drive my cars. I wear my watches, these kinds of things. Like I don't baby any of my equipment. I don't use, iron head covers, even though I love my irons and think they're beautiful. Yeah. Dark charcoal.
Yeah. And have you had a hole in one?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah. So I too played baseball as a kid, and
Oh, cool. What position?
almost all of them, but primarily second base. But I pitched.
Cool.
I caught for 2 years. I started at third because I was the only 6-year-old that could get the ball across the diamond.
I love it.
What about you? I know you
Baseball's a
played.
great game. Catcher.
You were a catcher. Yeah, dude, I loved that position because you feel
I
invincible.
was just good at talking shit.
Yeah, nice.
I was just the chatterbox.
Yeah, I just love feeling invincible. Like it was a really, really fun. But I caught for we had like the fastest pitcher in the league on our team.
Ooh.
And dude, that guy, I mean, my hand was hurting by the end of the game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you need to make sure you catch that one on the edge of the glove.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the pocket.
And then you throw, and just how many people you throw out at second? That's an amazing time.
I don't remember how many, but it did happen. But good God, that's a gratifying feeling.
It's so exciting.
Erik, thank you so much for the time. Let's play golf. We'll get Chris out. He and I are connected. Chris
Okay,
Durr.
cool. I love that. Yeah, we got to do that.
let's do
Yeah,
it.
soon. A couple months, like maybe September, October, I'll be out.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'm around.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Erik.
Looking forward to seeing it.
Okay,
Bye.
cheers.
See ya.
This wraps up this episode of the Standard Age podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show, as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track, as well as to Clear Audio for the noise canceling headphones. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.